in light of the recent documents given that were released from the State Department, I'm embarrassed, but I hope that you will embarrass them when you argue the case. So after 8 months, the State Department released these documents that claim to affect the designation of the MEK on the foreign terrorist list. And they are beyond laughable. But I'll let our distinguished lawyer, professor, please.
Thank you, Bruce. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stephen Schneebaum. I'm counsel to the National Council of Resistance in Iran and counsel to the Camp Ashraf families. I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of 2 developments. I don't need to go through background with this group, with this audience. You all know the basics. But 2 things I want to be sure everyone is aware of. One has to do, as Dr. McComb began to say, with the process for delisting that is now pending before the Department of State. All of you know that in 2008 we filed a petition to remove the PMOI from the Foreign Terrorist Organization list. It's the first time in American history that any organization has asked to be removed from the list. The procedure was new. It was being gone through for the first time. As you all know, in January of 2009, in its final days in office, the Bush administration ruled against us. We appealed to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and in 2010 we were successful. The case was remanded to the Department of State, and we are now in the process of attempting to marshal new evidence and new documents and new materials to demonstrate to the State Department what should be obvious and what is obvious to all of us, which is that the PMOI has nothing to do with terrorism. Well, the State Department has to produce, under the statute, it has to produce what is called an administrative record, and the administrative record has 2 parts, a classified part and an unclassified part. They have given us the unclassified part. They gave that to us ages ago. And it included some really dramatic stuff, as I'm sure you can imagine. I mean, it included articles from the newspapers. It included pieces that talked about folks who had been at Camp Ashraf and had left. There was absolutely nothing in the unclassified record to suggest any connection with terrorism. And indeed, the Department of Justice has admitted that. There is nothing in the unclassified record that supports the contention that PMOI is a terrorist organization. So now they have to come up with the new materials to support the contention, and they gave them to us on Friday. At long last, we've been waiting for months. They gave them to us. Here they are. This is the set of documents. I have them, as Senator McCarthy once said, I have in my hand the documents which will demonstrate beyond doubt that the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran is a terrorist group. Okay? Now what's in this packet, you might well ask. What is in this packet is 10 documents. Some of them are cables, State Department diplomatic cables, that report on exit interviews with people who have left Camp Ashraf and who complain about conditions at Ashraf. That's one set. Another are various pieces of what I can only laughingly call information, attributable to either FARS or IRNA, one of the 2 state-controlled so-called news agencies in Tehran. One of which is truly remarkable. There was apparently in November of 2010, there was an attempted hijacking of an Iran Air flight from Tehran to Damascus. Apparently right before it was to land in Damascus, some passenger stood up and said, I have a bomb, I want to take this plane elsewhere. He never said where. He was immediately tackled by air marshals and was bound and was taken off the plane in Damascus, and we can only imagine what's happened to him since then. But the point is, he never said anything about the PMOI. The Iranian spokesman, the regime spokesman, never said anything about the PMOI, and yet the State Department produced that report and said this has something to do with whether the PMOI is a terrorist organization. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not making this stuff up. It gets worse. There is another document in here which is called Operational Methods of the MEK. Operational Methods. That's the heading. It's a diplomatic cable. It comes from U.S. Embassy Baghdad. It's addressed to Washington. Unfortunately, all we have is the heading, Operational Methods of the MEK. The entire text of the document is redacted out. It's black. We can't see it. So we are now supposed to be able to rebut the so-called evidence that the State Department has put together. Well, over the past couple of days, the legal team has compiled a brief, which we will be submitting to the Department of State on Tuesday, which addresses all of this stuff and conclusively demonstrates that none of it has anything whatsoever to do with evidence of terrorism. The ball is now back in the State Department's court. The department must now decide whether to delist the PMOI, and although the statutory deadline is not entirely clear, it seems as if the deadline will be at the end of June. So sometime within the next 5 weeks or so, we should be getting the definitive determination from the Department of State. I want to address one other point very briefly, and that's this. Conditions at Ashraf. Okay, I'm going to defer to a member of Congress since it's their house, but I'll come back